Okay, so today we're going to talk about Chapter 9. We're going to start Chapter 9b, which is going to be over inequalities. So remember, inequalities involve the four symbols. We have greater than, less than, greater than or equal to, and less than or equal to. So you might remember back from the past few years when you've worked with these, you would see things like 3 is greater than negative 4. Okay? Or 3 is greater than or equal to, let's just say 3, because they're also equal to, but it also can be greater than. Or you would see things like, also you might have run into like x is less than 2. That means our variable or whatever number we're looking at is going to be has to be smaller than 2. Okay, and you might remember these as like alligator mounts, as the alligator eats the smaller number eats the bigger number. Okay, so you can see here, for instance, our negative 4 would be eating the 3 because it was smaller. Or our x is smaller because it's eating the 2, so we have to be smaller than the 2. Okay, so these are what we're going to be working with for this chapter instead of just equals. So now one thing we need to be aware of is that the equal to part here is with the line underneath the bottom. Okay, so that part is what determines if it can be equal to. If it doesn't have the line underneath of it, it cannot be equal to. And there's a few things that we'll represent these with as we do these problems. So the first one we'll start with is, let's just start with the x is less than 2. So I have x is less than 2. We can represent these as an inequality as how I've just written it, or we can represent them as a number line. And when we represent them as a number line, that's what we'll do is we'll make a number line, and then we'll put a circle on the number, and we'll determine which way it goes. So when we do this, I'm going to make my number line. Now, since I'm just drawing it, I don't have to put every single number that I possibly need there. So I'm just going to put the ones that I need. So I'm going to go ahead and do 0, and then I'm just going to count up to 2, so 1 and then 2. And then I'm going to go to negative 2, just so I have some numbers here. Okay. During this, so what I do is first I locate my 2, which is we call that our boundary point. Okay, so now I'm on my 2. This is the thing that we have to be a little careful of. Since it doesn't equal 2, we don't want for 2 to be included on that boundary point. So when we do that, what we're going to do is when we have it not equal to, we're going to put an open circle. Okay, so I put an open circle on 2, and then now I need to determine which way is it going to go. Well, remember, we always say the smaller number eats the bigger number. So since x is smaller, okay, it's eating the 2, we want everything smaller than 2. So I'm going to draw my arrow to the left so that way our numbers are smaller. Okay, and we have the open circle on 2 because we don't want 2 included, but we want everything up until 2. Okay, everything up until 2 but not 2. So that's how we would do that part. All right, so I'm going to go over another one here. I'm going to go over B, or I'm going to do another one here. So I'm going to go with, let's go with something like, I'll flip the order here as well. Let's go with like negative 4 is greater than or equal to, okay, greater than or equal to x. All right, so negative 4 is, I want to do negative 4 is less than or equal to x. Okay, negative 4 is less than or equal to x. So we're going to write this as a number line again. So I'm going to go ahead and put my number line here. Now I'm not going to go ahead and make a bunch of numbers. I'm just going to make 0 because that 0 is a key point for us. I'm just going to do 4 and negative 4. That's about all I really need. Now you should make sure you put them on the right side. So if it's a negative 4, make sure it's on the left, and make sure on the positive 4 is on the right-hand side. So now I look at my sign here to determine first. Our sign has the equal to part. So that means when it's equal to, we're going to do a solid circle. So I'm going to go ahead and put that up here. These notes. So the equal to ones are going to be solid circles. And then if it's not equal to, like the first one, we call those open circles. So that's when we would put an open circle. Okay, since we don't want those points included. Now, since we want the point included, that's why we put a solid circle. And we're going to put a solid circle on this one at negative 4. So I'm going to go ahead and put a solid circle at negative 4. Now, the tricky part is this is written backwards, okay, which is fine. You just still need to think about the smaller number is eating the bigger number, okay? But so it says negative 4 is less than or equal to x. So that means negative 4 is eating the x. So that means our numbers have to be bigger than negative 4 or equal to. Okay, so I'm going to draw, since they have to be bigger than is going to be to the right on the number line. So I'm going to go ahead and draw my number line. I'm going to draw my arrow to the right. Now, one thing you can also do is when you make these is you can rewrite the whole thing by just flipping everything. So if I flip this, I would have had x. I would flip my sign, which would then be greater than or equal to. Okay, and then I would have negative 4. I don't care which way you write them. Just make sure you're comfortable seeing all the different ways, and then make sure that you're comfortable with whatever method or whatever way you pick. All right, so let's go with C here. This time, what I'm going to do is I'm going to write one up here. I want you to pause the video after I write it on the screen, and I want you to try and create the number line for this one. So let's go with x is greater than or equal to 3. Okay, so I want you to pause the video and try to make the number line for this inequality. Okay, so for this one, I'm going to make my number line. Now, like I said, I'm just going to put some key points. I'm going to put 0, 3, and negative 3. That's about all I really need. Now, I see it's an equal to, so that means it's on 3. So on 3, I'm going to go ahead and put a solid circle. Now, it says x is greater than or equal to, which means 3 is smaller. So we want nothing smaller than 3. That means x has to be bigger than everything, because remember, the small number also eats the bigger number. Okay, so we wanted to go to the right since we want bigger than numbers. So I have a solid circle on 3, and I have my arrow going to the right. All right, so let's try another one here. Let's go with D. So this is the same thing. I want you to try this one by yourself, and then I want you to resume the video to check your answer. So I have 7 is greater than or equal to x. So 7 is greater than or equal to x. So pause the video and try this one by yourself. Okay, so for this one, same thing. Get that number line created. Okay, I'm going to put 0, 7, and negative 7. Okay, so I shouldn't have done this, but this is another equal to, so that's going to be a solid circle. Okay, so I'm going to put a solid circle on 7. All right, this one just happened to be another equal to problem. But now, if you want, you could rewrite the order, which would be x is less than or equal to 7, or think the smaller number is the bigger number. That means the alligator mouth is eating the bigger number. Okay, so we're going to be x needs to be smaller than, so I'm going to be smaller. So smaller, I mean I'm going to be going to the left. Okay, on my number line. All right. So remember, the key thing is open circle means not equal to, okay, and solid circle means equal to. All right, so let's take a look at some here now. Now we're gonna be given the number line, and we need to make we need to write the inequality. Okay, so when I do these, what I like to do is I first like to go ahead and put x, and then I like to put my boundary point, which I know is negative 2. Okay. Now the hardest part is figuring out the sign. Okay, so when we figure out the sign, the way to think about this is find your variable, okay, and ask yourself, is our variable getting bigger, which means going to the right, or is our variable getting smaller, which means it's going to the left? So if you say bigger, that means the number needs to be eating our variable. If you say smaller, that means our variable needs to be eating the number. Okay, or one way I like to also remember it as is the inequality, the bigger number is where it opens up to, the smaller number is where it closes. Okay, so when I look at this one, I see my number lines going to the right. That means it's got to be bigger. So I'm going to make my x going to be bigger than negative 2, which means negative 2 is going to be eating my x. Okay, and then I look at what type of circle do I have? Do I have open or closed? And on this one, I have an open circle, so that means it's not going to be equal to. So I'm not going to put the equal to part, and there would then be my inequality. All right, so let me do another one here. Okay, so same thing with on B. I'm going to go ahead and put my variable x, and then I'm going to put my number, which I see as 8. Okay, now I'm going to ask my same thing here. Is my number getting smaller or bigger? And I can see from my arrow is pointing to the left, that means it's getting smaller. So that means x has got to be smaller than 8. That means x has got to be eating the 8. So I'm going to put a less than symbol for mine. But then I also see that it's a closed circle, so I need my equal to part as well. Okay, so since it was a closed circle, I have my equal to part. And you can test numbers. So you see it goes over 0. If you put 0 in there, it should work. Okay, so that's one way. Once you write an inequality, you can always test some numbers, and then you can see if it actually worked and matches your number line. All right, so now I want you to try C and pause the video and resume it when you're ready to check your answer. Okay, so on this one, I'm going to do the same thing, x and negative 10, since negative 10 is my boundary point. Okay, I see it's an open circle, so I can know I don't need the equal to part. And I see it's going to the left, which means my variable has got to be smaller than my number. So that means my variable is going to be eating the number. Okay, so x is going to be less than negative 10, and since it's not equal to, I'm just going to have the less than sign, and then I'm going to have my answer right there as the inequality. Okay, so the last one here. I want you to try D now by yourself and resume the video when you're ready. All right, so this problem, I'm going to have x and 0 as my boundary point this time. Now you see our number is bigger than 0. So that means x has got to be 0 is going to be eating the x, since 0 is as small as it gets. So I'm going to put x is greater than or equal to 0. And then I'm going to have it's a solid circle, that means it's equal to, so I need to make sure I put my equal to part on my symbol. Okay, and then there would be your answer. Right. If you have any questions over this, please let us know, so that way we can help fix any misconceptions over this right away. Have a great rest of your day.